Greetings, everyone, and welcome back to Jersey Jump Shot, the only podcast dedicated exclusively to college basketball in the Garden State. I'm Jerry Carino. With me, as always, my longtime colleague, Steve Edelson. And when we say around the state, we mean around the Garden State. So with us this week, St. Peter's in the spotlight. Senior guard Marcus Randolph. Marcus is a Jersey guy, which makes this even better. He hails from Willingboro in Burlington County, home of Carl Lewis. Steve, I know you remember that. Marcus transferred to St. Peter's after 2 years at Richmond. Last season, he started 19 games to help the Peacocks win the MAC tournament and return to the big dance. This year, he's averaging 14.6 points per game. He's their leading scorer. On Saturday, he tallied 18.6 rebounds and played all 40 minutes in a victory at Sacred Heart. Marcus, welcome to Jersey Jump Shot.
Appreciate you. That was a good introduction right there, my guy.
Well deserved. Let's go. Let's take you back to when you're at Richmond as a freshman and St. Peter's makes that, of course, legendary run to the Elite Eight. What did you think of that, and how much did that influence you eventually winding up here?
Man, just to put it together briefly, I feel like that was great. My boy Latrell was on that team, actually. He was like a young guy and going through kind of the same phase I was going through at Richmond, is just being the young guy on the team and kind of picking up from older guys, but seeing them have success too. So as that journey was going on, I'm learning and watching like really how to win and what it takes to win. And while they were doing that, we were on a run ourselves too at Richmond. That was the year we went to the tournament as well.
That's right.
We didn't do as good, but we beat Iowa in the first round and then lost to Providence in the following round. So it was real fun, and it was really unique to be able to talk to Trell while he was going through it. Like, yo, we probably ain't gonna play tonight, but yo, we here. Like we somewhere where a lot of players our age or people who admire the game like we do, they would love to be where we at right now. So that was just a blessing. And as far as it trickling down to my decision, of course it did. Success is always brings winners, but I feel like just that seeing that right there, it made me feel like it was possible. Of course, when I did return home to come here to Jersey City.
So Latrell Reed, who you're referring to, of course, was he was like a deep reserve on the Elite Eight team, but then last year he's the point guard with you on your team as you guys made it back to the NCAA tournament. What's Latrell up to now?
Latrell, he's still working out. He's one of the hardest workers I know. Really, people ask me what he's up to. I'd be like, yo, he's working out, and he's really one of the main guys that's keeping me straightforward right now as far as my season right now. I know you're saying we're doing good, but it's a lot of times where my head spiraling or like just trying to maintain that leadership role. I'll call him, and he keeps me centered. I would say that's one thing he's doing actively right now, is keeping me centered, me being his little brother.
Hey, Marcus, I was at the MAC final in Atlantic City against Fairfield last year, and I remember you hitting a big three-pointer with about 5 minutes left in that game. It was really tight. What do you remember from that day, that moment, that game when you guys got into the tournament?
From the day, I would just say I remember just the feeling like waking up feeling like, all right, we made it to day 3. Like it ain't no way we're getting told no today. I feel like it was just that feeling. Like I was ultra confident that day, and the game I was having personally, like my game was kind of up and down compared to how I ended my season last year. Like I was knocking a lot of shots down like towards the end of the season going into that stretch. So they were covering me a lot better in the tournament, which was expected. But me being a junior and I wanted to make everything happen, I was kind of like, dang, like I got to make something more happen. And then when I did get a clean look, it was like, I need this to go. Like this could be a dagger for our situation right here. So that was the feeling I had. I was ultra confident throughout the whole tournament, and especially on championship day.
And that whole experience going to the NCAA tournament, and take us through that and what that was like for you. That second
my first year or last year?
What's that?
Are you saying my freshman year or last year?
Last year.
Last year, the experience was it was great because it was a goal that we had set out. especially not. It's a team goal, but like we talk about me and Trail, like we had the goal of like, yeah, we watched these older guys do it. Let's see if we could do it. Let's see if we could come together at home and do what we've seen be done. And we went through a rough patch last year in conference play, non-conference. So just to be able to stand tall through those currents and be able to, I say, go back and take Jersey to the, because nobody else from Jersey went last year, and
That's
to be
right.
the only ones from Jersey to go and then play Ziegler's brother, like it was a lot. It was a lot. I would say it was surreal, man. It was surreal. I would say.
Well, you mentioned the Zieglers, of course, in Tennessee. You guys played them in the first round, but what having represented Richmond at Richmond and St. Peter's in the NCAA tournament, Marcus, what's different about repping your home state? You referenced that, like, what does it feel like when this is your state? Your team. How does that change differ for you? The feeling from being there with Richmond.
It's like it makes like it's the same goal, I would say, one
Right.
school going to the tournament, but it's just different as far as like history. Like a lot of people can't say that they, especially St. Peter's. Like I see if you go to the tournament with Rutgers or Seton Hall, it's kind of like, all right, those are like the main brand names in Jersey as far as the big schools. But like Princeton, us, and then you feel me, like schools like us is like, if we go there, it's like you really worked hard, and we only got one big league, so it's special. It's a tell to hard work for sure. Like it's nothing else that you can put it to. It's hard work, just being able to grind out those 3 days in March and be able to crown yourself champions to go to the big dance and wake up and see yourself on that selection day. That day right there is all it is in one right there.
A lot of pressure on those 3 days for sure in March, like you said. Let's
Yeah.
talk about earlier this season. We'll go into this season now. And, you scored 22 points at Rutgers. You guys gave Rutgers a hard time up in the rack, Jersey Mike's Arena. What was it like doing that? And what was it like going up against Dylan Harper and like matching him basket for basket?
Um, that was a good experience, I would say. Not so much for me, but for my teammates, I would say. We got a lot of young guys, a lot of guys who haven't played as many games as me, like not even close. So just being in that environment at Jersey Mike's, I know last year we went there and it got kind of hard for us. We kind of got the game slipped away from us. So I knew that being our senior guy, being a leader, that even if it was shot making or making the right pass or just the right play, I felt like I had to make sure that my guys knew that we were good at all times of the game. So if it was shot making that night, then it was shot making, and that's what it was for me. I kind of got it rolling early, and I got a good feel for the game. So, like you said, playing Dylan Harper, man, he's a game changer at such a young age. He's, for me, big guard, can handle it, can finish, can shoot. He's great actually. So being able to, like you said, match him basically shot for shot it wasn't a goal, I would say, but it was a pretty good game. That made the game way better to watch. Two lefties going at it.
Lefties, I love it.
Hey, Marcus, the MAC is such a league with some unique home courts. What's been the toughest place to play there for you?
Toughest for me, I'm really a away game guy. Like I really am, and I'm trying to get better because we need some home wins. But man, I'm a away game guy. But the atmosphere I like best. I love to play at. I love to play at Ryder. I know I'm a Willenboro guy, so that's right
Right.
there.
Yeah.
So,
Right. Love it.
and last year, I like that Fairfield game we played I like the atmosphere in there. I don't really remember another atmosphere like that. I think Fairfield, they really be having it out for us. So they fans came in and they turned the place up last year at Fairfield. So I won't say that's the toughest, but I would say I enjoyed that environment the most
Well,
as since I've been in the MAC. Yeah.
at Ryder in the Bronx Zoo, I mean, the fans are right on top of you. The students are right there. So
Right on top of us, they're right on top of Marcus Randolph personally. I feel like everybody in the gym knows me.
They did some research on your background. Were they calling out your name? What was going on down there?
Man, I don't even think they got to do research. A lot of them, I grew up with a lot of them. I know a lot of their students, so
All right.
it's easy for them to get backdoor information on me.
All right, that's good to know. I love that inside stuff. Why is Marcus? Why is the MAC so unpredictable? It seems like really, like it's impossible to sort of figure out who's going to win. and especially in the MAC tournament, like the top seed never wins a thing. Why is it so crazy in that league?
Honestly, I think because one, it's a lot of kids, a lot of players. I won't say kids. It's a lot of players that one are very familiar with each other. I don't think we played a team yet this year that I haven't either come up play AAU with one of the guys on another team or have been in college or played them at Richmond or something like that. I feel like everybody is close or familiar with each other, and that makes the competition level rise to another level. And then too, I feel like a lot of the teams and coaches, they're kind of picking off the same kind of brand and identity for their teams. I feel like in the MAC, it's toughness. It's about being tough defensively and rebounding, I would say. And a lot of teams are taking on to that Iona, St. Peter's kind of style of play, whereas though it's physical and we're going to defend and grind our way out in this league. So I feel like if a lot of teams are taking that route, because as you see, Iona and St. Peter's have been the last champions over I would say, I think the last decade it's been
Right.
Iona, St. Peter's. So, and obviously, anybody who sees that kind of success rate, they're going to be like, "Oh, okay, what are they doing over there that's helping wins come about and bringing championships?" So, I feel like the identity and the style that these coaches are imposing on the MAC teams is very similar, and that's why I think we're seeing neck and neck games or just close battles as any basketball fan or lover will want to see.
What's it like playing for Bashir Mason, and maybe some examples that kind of show what kind of coach he is?
It's a challenge, I would say. If your head is not where it's supposed to be, um, coach is really like a guy. He's great with basketball, great X and O's guy. But if you're not ready to accept the challenges of life, it's bigger than basketball here. If you're not ready to get better at being a man and just things like that, just life qualities, because he uses a lot of life qualities with getting us better at basketball. So it's great for me, man. Just the kind of person I am. I need somebody like Coach Bosch to be around every single day just to pick his brain and learn from him on and off the court. So my experience has been great, man.
That's good. That's interesting stuff. Speaking of being a mentor, let's take that the other way now. What's your biggest piece of advice, Marcus, to like a young kid, the next promising hooper growing up in Willingboro who wants to play Division I ball? What's the single biggest piece of advice you'd give him?
I would just say take care of your time. Take care of your time. Maximize your time. Make sure you're working out, taking care of your body, because that's the most important thing right there. Other than school, you got to have good grades and stuff. But when we just talking about basketball and coming up and being the next big thing, I would say take care of your body, take care of your mental. I'm a spiritual guy, so that's me. I'm stretching, I'm eating good, I'm doing some yoga stuff, meditating, just stuff like that. Praying, I pray a lot. But everybody's not spiritual, but just stuff like that. I would say living a healthy lifestyle. I would say.
Your major is communications and entrepreneurship. What are you looking to do with that? What are kind of your goals?
Actually, my major it's a composite major here at St. Peter. So, I'm a business and sports management major with a communications minor. So, with business and sports management after basketball, I'm a sports guy. So, I done had talks. I got family members that do agencies and stuff like that. So I still want to be around the game, man. Whether it's I'm overseeing training or giving back that way, working guys out, because I had a lot of trainers coming up, and I love the idea of giving back and sharing your knowledge of the game. Whether it's that, doing some agency stuff, recruiting, like that's kind of the route I want to go in. Other than my family food chain that is going to get ready to open up after post my graduation. That's a little secret I'll let y'all in on. But we about
What
to
is
open
that?
up. We about to open up a family food business. I'm Caribbean. I'm Jamaican, so it's gonna be Caribbean food, soul food, stuff like that,
Oh,
close to my hometown. So yeah, that's where I'm gonna start at, and then after that, I want to get back to the game, man. There's I had so many older people and my older cousins and peers that give back to me and share information with me. I feel like I would be doing a disservice if I don't do the same thing to people who are coming up under me.
well, I got to tell you, I could totally see you being in media too, being like an analyst doing radio analysis on
Yep.
TV. You got the personality, man. So that's
Sorry, I
good
cut
stuff.
out.
Yeah, you're in. You're back. You're back. So you got the person. Marcus, you still with us? You still with us, Marcus?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I can't hear you guys. Sheesh.
Okay. So we want to just say thank you for coming on.
I see the
Much
wave.
much appreciated. Thanks,
I can't
Marcus.
hear you no more.
Okay, we're good. Thank you. We appreciate you coming on.
All right.
Thanks a lot. Great job. We lost Marcus there at the end, but I think we got the gist of it, right?
He was great, and it really got great perspective on everything.
Yeah, super job. And like that's why I love having these guys on, Steve, because there's a lot of personality in college basketball, right? And so there's an instance of a guy who clearly is a leader, and he's getting a lot more out of the game than just bouncing a ball, right? So that's kind of what this is about.
Yeah, and they could still write a really good story at St. Peter's this winter. So it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, like you said, the MAC is 3 days in March, right?
Yep.
So is he coming? He wants to come back on, Marcus?
Yeah, I couldn't leave guys like that, man. I had some connection issues.
All right.
What happened? Everything good?
We're good. We got one more question for you now that you're back with us. All right. And like we
Yeah.
said, we can totally see you being on media, doing media for a career. You're good at this. But you mentioned food. So we got to ask you, and we ask everybody this. You know, you've lived in Richmond, you've lived in Jersey City now, you grew up in Willingboro. Where's the best food? Is Richmond food, Jersey City food? Give me the comparison. What's better?
I'm a Jersey guy, man. You know, my choice is biased, so I would definitely say the food here is better. I think it's a lot more choices here. But when I was in Richmond, I was well taken care of too, as far as like food. I'm a big Zaxby's guy in the All American. I mean, I think it's called America's Best Chicken. That's good in Richmond. But other than those two right there, when I come home, mom's cooking is
All right.
top here. Nothing could be home cooking, man.
Good answer.
Isn't that the lesson for all of us in life? All right, Marcus, now we're going to give you a proper sign off. Thanks for coming on. Marcus Randolph, St. Peter's. We'll be looking for you in those 3 days in March, Marcus. Thanks a lot for coming on.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Appreciate you.
All right, Steve. Good stuff. So we got a lot to talk about this week, and we'll keep an eye on the Peacocks going forward. I love that he logged back in and wanted to finish off. Got to love it. All right. So listen, this is now we had a big weekend of news happening for Seton Hall, right? They host St. John's. Kadari Richmond comes back. He gets booed as we expected. I wouldn't say he was harassed. I think Seton Hall fans handled it right. They booed him. They waved signs with snakes and dollar signs and stuff. And it was what you would expect, right? So St. John's then, St. John's is really good, by the way. I know we don't talk about them a lot on the show. They're not in New Jersey, but they're really good. Their defense is elite. They come in and just totally shut Seton Hall down. I mean, just run them off the court, basically. Just absolutely shut them down. Seton Hall opens up 1 for 21 shooting from the field. It was just total eyesore. Now, Dylan Daiwusu did not play, right? So he's a key guy, but still, that wasn't going to change the outcome. It just made the margin worse. But anyway, but what was really interesting, the action in this game was all in the post game, right? Because Rick Pitino comes in, and this is why when you have these coaches with these personalities in college basketball, it's so interesting, right? Football coaches, pro football, college football coaches, they say nothing. They pretty much say nothing. Their players, a lot of them adopt that nothingness of personality in public. But in basketball, it's a lot different, right? There's a lot of personality. People speak their mind. Jim Calhoun once called it the living room sport because it feels like you know the people, you see their faces. And so Pitino, who's better at that than Rick Pitino, comes in, and I asked him the question, like, He got asked some questions about his team from the New York writers and everybody. And then I asked him about how he thought Kadari handled his return. And, Pitino said the comments that are now pretty much famous that when he said he didn't. First of all, he said that everyone who booed him would have done the same thing that Kadari did. Okay. Would have taken the money like Kadari did. And then he says, if the money was the same, he would have stayed with Shaheen. If the money was close, he would have still be with Shaheen. Seton Hall, can't compete. Like they have no revenue. They have the least revenue in the league, and that's a big problem for them. And it was a shocking admission of the truth, right? The truth is sometimes shocking to hear. But I'll ask you in your thoughts in a second, Steve. But my initial reaction was, look, Rick was trying to defend Kadari, right? He was trying to basically say like Kadari didn't leave as a screw you to Seton Hall. He didn't leave to because he hated Seton Hall. He loved Seton Hall, and I think there's some truth to that. And he liked Shaw, and I think there's some truth to that. Shaw made him into a really good player. Rick's point was to defend Kadari and why he left, but I think what he did was a big favor to Shaheen Holloway and Seton Hall basketball. He sounded the alarm. Go ahead, Steve. What did you think?
No, I think that's exactly what he did. Was, he listened. He said what needed to be said. There's haves and there's haves not in this league right now, and you're going to have games like this. And I mean, for a lot of the night, Seton Hall looked like a mid-major playing in the Big East, and that's the unfortunate reality right now. And we're at a point where money kind of trumps rivalries, loyalties, team building, and all those things that made college basketball great. And, right now you could be heading for a situation where you have teams with money and teams without, and it could be a major shakeup. I mean, who knows? Well, as long as it's a free-for-all like it is right now, you're going to have situations like this. And
that's a big point that I want to make. I think a lot of people put all the blame on NIL when in fact, you and I know, Steve, players have been getting paid under the table for generations. Yeah. The difference is, and this is a huge difference. The difference is, okay, so players would get paid as they were recruited out of high school or whatever. We know that's always been the case. However, once you got players into your program, you had a chance to develop them without them walking out the door. And last year, Seton Hall put a 28-0 run on St. John's in that same building with Richmond on their team, and Shaheen Holloway beat St. John's 2 out of 3 times. Right. Is Shaheen Holloway less of a coach this year? No, he has no players. He has no players because his players walked out the door that he developed. They walked out the door because they got substantially more money elsewhere. The reason why Seton Hall had a good team last year, and NIL was still around in the 2023 offseason, Steve, they had a good team, not because it wasn't NIL didn't hurt them because those guys couldn't transfer out. There were restrictions on transfer rules. So Kadari Richmond, Dre Davis, and Alamir Dawes, and I think Dawes would have stayed anyway. But those 3 guys couldn't transfer out. So did they get some NIL? Yes, they got some NIL. NIL was a thing. Yes, it was a thing. But they couldn't leave. And now you get all the transfer restrictions, throw them out the window, and it's free agency every year. And that's where it's killing a school like Seton Hall. Seton Hall could pay their guys a nominal amount. They could keep and develop those guys. Players were always getting paid, but when you got a guy in your program, you could keep him and develop them, and that was Shaheen's specialty. Right. That's what he did with those guys. Now you can't develop guys unless you bid for them in the open market every year, and Seton Hall's at an enormous disadvantage here. The transfer portal is killing the sport and killing college basketball and hurting these players, by the way, who transfer multiple times and are not going to graduate. It's not NIL. It's a transfer portal that makes NIL disproportionate to what it might have been.
Right, because now you can, if you have money, you can immediately poach a guy's players after 1 year.
And God bless Rick Pitino for announcing that's what they did. So, I mean, give him credit. And Shaw, we asked Shaw about it, and he's basically said, look, Rick Pitino can say whatever he wants. He's in a position to say whatever he wants, and he does. And so he opened up a discussion, but more importantly, more relevant, and he did defend Kadari Richmond and his motives, which is fine. But most importantly, from our perspective, covering Seton Hall, I think he did Shaheen Holloway a huge favor because Seton Hall, look, there's always going to be haves and have-nots, Steve. Seton Hall's always been more on the have-not side, but the gap has to be somewhat, it can't be like an ocean. It can't be an ocean. And right now it's an ocean because of NIL transfer portal. The figure that I had heard for Seton Hall's budget last year was $1.5 million. I don't know if that's exactly correct, but it's in that ballpark. And that's most of the schools in their league are in the 3 to 4 million range and maybe upwards of 5 toward the top level. Okay. So you're talking about half. Seton Hall's playing Shaheen mentioned, I'm playing the cards I was dealt when we asked him about it. You're talking about Seton Hall as half the cards or a third of the cards than the teams in their league. We're not talking about Seton Hall against Kansas or Duke. We're talking about against the teams in their league that they have to compete against. And not just the big-time teams, not just the UConns, like a lot of the other teams. And so that gap has to close or Seton Hall has to just not play in that league. If you're not going to make an effort to close that gap, then just get out of the Big East. And that's, I think, the alarm bell that went off yesterday, Saturday, that's the alarm bell that the score of the game, that Kadari Richmond returning for the other team, and that Rick Pitino in his post-game press conference all sounded that alarm, I believe, all the way up the Seton Hall food chain. I'm not talking about the athletic director. The people in the athletic department know. They understand what has to be done. I'm talking about all the way up the chain. I'm talking about the president's office. I'm talking about the board of regents and maybe even the archdiocese. Like, that's where the message needs to be heard. Not to mention that the wealthy alums who kicked in, like 25 million plus to the practice facility that they just built, that they're going to open in a few weeks. Like, those are the people, and that's the money that needs to help Shaheen Holloway put a roster together, Steve.
Right. And I think you look at it the other way. How long did the teams with a lot of money want to keep playing with teams that don't have money? Eventually they're going to break off. So you have to close that gap somehow.
Yeah. So I feel like, and I don't know how exactly, we'll see how revenue sharing factors in. I believe revenue sharing will help Seton Hall. It'll give them some working capital from within the institution rather than relying on outside donors for everything. St. John's has the luxury of having a billionaire buddy of Rick Pitino who could write a giant check to Kadari Richmond. Like, that's basically what happened, as we all know, and as Rick has announced. So now Seton Hall doesn't have that billionaire, but can they use revenue sharing to at least have some working capital? So my feeling is that this sounded the alarm, and that we'll see how it plays out. But now I think there's going to be some movement to really try to close this gap some. Seton Hall is never going to be a have, but they have to be less of a have-not. I do feel like there is a movement afoot to do what it takes to keep Isaiah Coleman. Like, this is the first test for Seton Hall is, can you keep Isaiah Coleman? You have a budding star as a sophomore wing who's developed for 2 years in your program. Where can Shaheen Holloway take this guy in year 3? Like, that's really tantalizing. You can build around a player like this. I know St. John shut him down. He had his first bad game, like the entire Big East run on Saturday. This is a guy you can build around. It sounds like, so last year at this time we were hearing, like, in the inside, you were hearing Kadari Richmond and Dre Davis are gone. They're just gone after the season. I'm not hearing that about Isaiah Coleman. I think there's a chance they keep him. I think there's a movement within to try to cement that down now, and then, to help Seton Hall bring in some players. Now, by the same token, I do feel like Shaheen Holloway is going to have to adjust his strategy a little bit on team building. Like, this year was an experiment, okay? Last year, Seton Hall got through the season with basically a 7-man rotation. It was down to 6 at the end. And Holloway was looking to build something more like he had at St. Peter's, where there was 10 guys, interchangeable parts, little drop-off. I think that's kind of what he was trying to do this year. And to me, one of the lessons, and listen, Shaw is allowed to have an experimental year, right, Steve? He's allowed.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the situation, though, unfortunately for him, is he can't miss. Like, he's got to hit home runs. So that's a lot of pressure every year to hit home runs.
Right. So there's no margin for error when you're dealing with a lot smaller budget. And that's the thing, basically, right? He's got to get the Jaden Bediako type of guy right. And this year they mostly did not get those guys right. Also, they brought in more guys this year. Last year they brought back the nucleus of 3 or 4 guys and then just had to fill in some pieces around them. This year they mostly started with a new team. But like what I was saying was, perhaps Holloway has to go back to, I'm going to consolidate the budget that I have around 5 or 6 players, guys who can really play, instead of trying to spread it out among 10 guys and make it work in a platoon system. Like, that might be something he has to revisit. You don't have the luxury of bringing in 10 guys who can play. You may need to go for the sure thing, closer to the sure thing for 5 guys, than see if you can make it coach 10 guys up. So but it starts with Seton Hall. It starts with keeping Isaiah Coleman and maybe a couple of these guys who can help out. And I feel like Saturday, the early vibes are Saturday set the alarm bell off and there's people hearing it. Will they answer it? We'll see. Are they hearing it? I think so. And Rick Pitino inadvertently does Shaheen Holloway and Seton Hall a big favor there. Marquette comes in on Tuesday. Notice, so Marquette's, there's a school that never loses its players, right, Steve? When Marquette loses a guy, they go pro, okay? Or they graduate and they're out of eligibility. People don't transfer out of Marquette for the most part. It's happened a few times. For the most part, they've kept their players. It's not a magic wand, man. They keep their players because Marquette invests a lot into basketball. Their budget alone, I'm not talking about NIL war chest. I'm talking about the like basketball revenue expenditure budget is like double what Seton Hall's is. So their war chest is probably double at least. And so they're keeping players. That's why they're keeping them. Okay. People ask, why do they keep them? Why doesn't Seton Hall? That's simple. Pitino pulled the curtain back on that. So that's where Seton Hall's at. Let's talk Rutgers. And I want to really talk about, Rutgers playing better, Steve. They won 2 games. Everyone's like backed off the ledge. Dylan Harper healthy makes a huge difference, obviously. And I think some of the pieces of the role players are starting to learn their roles a little bit. And Ace Bailey's playing better. Like Ace Bailey has stopped auditioning for the NBA. He's going to make the NBA, man. He needs to stop putting a mixtape together and start playing to win. And he did. And he's been rebounding and he's been blocking shots and he's been doing the hustle plays and he's been passing the ball. And so like he's definitely gotten the message. And so good for him. Rutgers playing better, Steve. And now like they have Penn State tonight, but then Michigan State in a humongous, enormous game, which is Michigan State, one of the hottest teams in the country, best team Tom Izzo's had in a long time. And they'll be playing them at Madison Square Garden on Saturday.
Yeah, I find it interesting that, obviously winning on the road at Nebraska is huge, but Rutgers is going to have to save this season away from Jersey Mike's Arena, right? They're going to have to go to MSG. They got to go to Penn State tonight. They got to go to Illinois. So, it's going to be interesting. And the whole MSG thing is fascinating, really, when you're playing Tom Izzo in the world's most famous arena. And to see what he's going to come up with defensively, it's going to be a great day, really.
First of all, winning in Nebraska was a great sign. Nebraska had won 20 straight home games. They hadn't lost a Big Ten home game in 2 years. Yeah. And so, like, the Nebraska is probably a comparable team to Rutgers in terms of what they have on the court. But to go there and win in a very hostile environment, and like Nebraskans, I know it's a football state, it's a football school. They do love their basketball. So to go in there and win was a really good sign, I thought. And Nebraska had a big free throw shooting advantage, which we know in the Big Ten, the home whistle is pronounced in the Big Ten. For Rutgers to go in there and win anyway, and I know they won by shooting the lights out. That might not be something they can replicate every game, but that was just a good sign to go in there and win, I think, mentally, to show them they can do it. I want to talk about the game at Madison Square Garden a little bit. And again, I want to dispel some misperceptions, Steve, if there are any out there still. This game against Michigan State, that it's being played at Madison Square Garden as a Rutgers home game, was Rutgers' idea. Steve Peichel pushed hard for this game, okay? He wanted this game, and Tom Izzo didn't arrange the game. The Big Ten has nothing to do with the game. They signed off on it. They said, okay, you find an opponent then. And so the original opponent was going to be Michigan, and then that fell through. I don't know why, scheduling stuff probably. And then Tom Izzo, of course Tom Izzo would rather play at Madison Square Garden. Of course he said no problem. But like Izzo didn't orchestrate the game. I know the guy is a dean of the sport, but he doesn't have that much power. Rutgers orchestrated this game because why did Rutgers want to play this game? Mostly because they have Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper, that those guys wanted to play a game in Madison Square Garden, and they want to show off their team in Madison Square Garden in this giant forum like this. Now, could they have done this out of conference? Like, this is a thing. Could they have done this out of conference and scratch that itch? Maybe, maybe not. Like, if what out of conference team is going to want to come play Rutgers and Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey and 12,000, 15,000 Rutgers fans? What out of conference team is going to sign up for that? Would you sign up for that? Yeah. I mean, if you're Syracuse, let's look at the teams that it could have been, right? Like Syracuse, the teams in the region, UConn, Villanova. Those are 3, big high majors in the area that could have reasonably brought some fans to Madison Square Garden. Why would they sign up for that? Why would they play in a Rutgers-centric environment out of conference? So I think Steve tried with Syracuse, and of course Syracuse didn't want to do that. So what he's left with is a conference game where Tom Izzo said, okay, yeah, no problem. That's an upgrade for me. I'll take it. And so that's how that happened. So it was hard to schedule this. But like if you're a Rutgers fan, I understand Rutgers fans are upset. They got to buy the season ticket holders got to buy the ticket separately. I get that. But if you're a Rutgers fan, did you want Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper in your program? Like, this is part of the way they got recruited here. It wasn't as much as I like the guys who run Rutgers fan collectives and they do a good job. Those collectives didn't get those guys here. It was other stuff outside the box, including playing a game at Madison Square Garden. And I think it's great anyway. Right, Steve? How great is that to be playing this game, which might be one of the biggest games in the country Saturday in the world's most famous arena?
It's great for your school. It's great for the program. It's great for the kids. It's great for college basketball. So I think it's going to be a fascinating game, really, especially if Rutgers can win at Penn State. I just think it's going to be great.
And so Rutgers will have played these three neutrals, aside from the Vegas tournament. They'll arrange these 3 one-off games at neutral sites, although this will count as a home game for metrics purposes in the Garden. Well, not neutral site. They played these 3 games that were sort of rogue a little bit at Kennesaw State, which was a bad idea. Okay, you went into the Hornets' nest. Team wasn't ready. You took an L that you didn't need to take. Played Princeton in Newark, which I thought was great. And so, look, that was a home game basically for Rutgers. They had the whole arena was red. Princeton beat you not because of the venue. They beat you because they beat you. And so, to me, and Rutgers got an appearance fee. So, like, they need money. Rutgers doesn't have much NIL budget either. They need money. So they got an appearance fee. Princeton beat you because they beat you. There was a Rutgers, that gym was turned into the Rack North, okay? And so that was okay. And now this is really good. I love it. I think it's great. I can understand a season ticket holder being miffed about having to buy the extra ticket from a pure competitive standpoint. I think it's great atmosphere. And, go win the game. That's it. Just go win the game. So that's, to me, is going to be a lot of fun and a huge moment for the program this season, a great stage. And I give Steve Peichel a lot of credit for playing that game there, and Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper. I don't blame them for wanting to play a game there in their one collegiate season. Like, this is the Mecca, and it should be a lot of fun. All right, Steve, let's run down the state super quick. Princeton, they win at Dartmouth as on a step back 3-pointer by Xaivian Lee with 5 seconds up. What about this Xaivian Lee, Steve? What about this guy?
He's clutch, I tell you. And honestly, to win back-to-back, on an Ivy League road trip, is tough to do. So to finish it off that way, I think that's really going to provide some momentum for Princeton.
Xaivian Lee's got 2-way NBA contract written all over him, if not late second round draft pick. The guy's just so good, and real credit to Mitch Henderson and Brett McConnell for finding him, and Mitch Henderson for developing him into this. Princeton is just so good at that. So that's been fun to watch. And then we'll be following them in their Ivy League journey. We do think they have the best chance of representing the Garden State in March Madness, although the Ivy League is tough. Princeton just has 2 great players, and the supporting cast is playing okay, playing pretty well. Monmouth lost again on the road. What is the deal? Monmouth's home and road splits here. It's just like night and day.
Yeah, basically. And I think in Monmouth's case, unfortunately, they have 2 guys that show up and score every game, and that's it. And the other guys, so unless they're going to get more contributions, it's going to be hard for them to win consistently the rest of the way, really. So,
hats off to Ryder for beating Marist. The MAC is nutty, Steve. And you covered the MAC for years. Marist was undefeated. Marist, coached by our old friend John Dunn, who, of course, led St. Peter's to March Madness in their prior appearance before Shaheen Holloway. And John Dunn also was the X's and O's expert on Lewis Orr's staffs at Seton Hall that went to 2 NCAA tournaments. So we know, and like John Dunn, he's got his best team at Marist, and yet Ryder comes out from the basement of the MAC and beats them. And so I don't know, man. The MAC is really, it's the Wild West, and it is truly 3 days in March, right? And that's what makes it fun, I guess.
Absolutely. And listen, whatever happens in Atlantic City, that's the way it goes every year. And so last year was a great MAC final, we talked about earlier, and I think it's going to be a wild finish this year.
And then tip of the cap to NJIT for winning a game at New Hampshire. Tariq Francis, their terrific sophomore guard, 19 points and 8 assists. Slow but steady steps for NJIT and Grant Billmeyer, right, Steve?
Yeah, absolutely. And it'll be nice because he's doing it the right way. We've talked to him, we've seen it, and it will be nice when they get to that higher level.
Hopefully they can keep a lot of this young core together. Okay, so that's where we're at. It's mid-January, and it's almost time to talk bracketology. Will we do that next week? We'll see. We'll see what happens this week. For now, thank you to Marcus Randolph of St. Peter's. Jersey Jump Shot, it's a pleasure to be with you along the way, and we will see you again soon.